Hello, welcome to Okawa Book Club. So we're your hosts, I'm Dylan.
I'm John.
And we're going to be discussing the teachings of Ryuho Okawa. Ryuho Okawa is a world teacher, master, and CEO of Happy Science Group. Today's episode is not on a book, it's actually on a movie called Twiceborn. So if you remember, we did a book club episode on Twiceborn the book. Well, that was made into a movie, and it just showed in theaters recently. So it's based on the true story of Ryuho Okawa. The subheading of the movie is The Sun Shall Rise Again. Let's talk today, John, about that movie, our impressions, our takeaways, and what we think this message can really teach people today. You just saw it. I'm just curious to wonder, what you thought the main message was or what the movie was trying to portray as the overall theme.
Yeah, this was definitely a movie I was excited to see. I loved the book. The movie was incredibly inspirational. And there was, in terms of a theme, it's hard to pick just one because there were many themes. It was sort of like a movie filled with spiritual teachings presented in almost plain clothes, that you have to sort of read into them and they're there, But one thing that stuck out to me was how Ryo Okawa constantly strives forward. And he always strives with the truth of what he really believes in, honestly. And I thought that was such an important concept presented, when he's confronted by things that he disagrees with, he doesn't just blindly agree with them. He will debate in favor of what is for the greater good of all of us. And a concept I think that was really emphasized well was the idea and the practice of conquering sort of the lower forces that can burden us as humans and hold us back and try to lead us astray from our true path.
Yeah, I thought almost the exact same way about the overall theme of the movie. It's almost like I thought it portrayed a completely humble self-confidence.
Right.
To move forward in life, make a name for yourself, but not doing it for selfish reasons, doing it for the happiness of humankind. And the actor really portrayed how Ryuho Okawa was as a young boy, as a young man, and in his, university years and work years until he started the movement of Happy Science. So it was actually dramatic and emotional at times, but at other times I just felt, wow, I wish, so many kids could watch this movie and learn what it's like to be a diligent young person.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, if you were familiar with Ryo Okawa's story, it was so great to see it on film this way, and there was a dramatic element to it, but it was not dramatized. It was, essentially how it happened. And
yeah.
I thought that was so cool. And I agree, Dylan. It would be a great inspiration for younger people to see, especially as they're becoming adolescents, what they can do to become better adults as they, go through their teenage years and their early 20s.
Yeah, and then just repelling society's influence on us and doing what is right anyways. Even when other people are out having fun playing, he was inside reading.
Right.
He was devoting himself to studying. He wanted to be, in his university years, the wisest man in Japan. And he made so much efforts in his mental and spiritual cultivation behind the scenes. Not for worldly fame or glory, but just for the pursuit of enlightenment and the pursuit of happiness as a seeker of the truth.
Yeah, I thought it was great how, when, it shows in the movie when he starts first receiving spiritual messages, which, for those familiar with Ryo Okawa's books, that comprise a large amount of the publications. But he was so humble in the sense that he was still working at a trading house, I believe, and he didn't rush to tell everybody that he worked with about them, the books that he was publishing, and they ended up finding out by accident through someone else, and then they all were interested in it naturally. But, he wasn't, boasting about anything.
Right. That takes us to, something that's really important to maybe the history of Happy Science, which was how he did attain enlightenment in 1981. But it wasn't until after that he decided to, create Happy Science. He waited many years to verify the teachings that he was getting from these spirits, verify that what they're saying is authentic and what they're saying is rational and it's consistent. So he's not like a traditional religious leader in that way. He was apprehensive about that And he took his time and was patient about it. And after all those years, he truly verified that what the spirits were saying were true. And then he, after that, awoke to his mission to preach the teachings to save humankind. The kind of flow that's shown in the movie is completely accurate to how it was in reality, but I think almost no religious leaders take that path. It's so unique.
Yeah, it's very rare. Generally speaking, I think most religious leaders, in the present time at least, they kind of go a more orthodox path. They go through a training in a seminary or whatever it may be, and, they get there. I mean, what Ryo Okawa did to start his path as a spiritual leader and a religious leader is almost more in common with how someone like maybe Shakyamuni or Jesus Christ or, the ancient prophets and teachers, they had to build up, gradually and become it and test it and then start teaching it.
Yeah, and I just remember, John, when we spoke in a recent episode, you had mentioned that one of the things that connects Ryo Okawa and Shakyamuni Buddha is the management abilities. And many people have claimed to be Buddha over the years, but we lined up all the facts of why he is a Buddha or he is the Buddha. And you mentioned about his management. Actually, the movie shows how he studied in Tokyo and New York and became a financial elite. He became someone extremely successful in this world, but after that, he discovered that his mission was so much greater and worldly fame and worldly profits wasn't what he wanted to devote his life to. So he abandoned everything. He started from scratch and he renounced the world. And that's parallel to Buddha's time renouncing the castle and going off into the wilderness to pursue enlightenment. So it really shows the parallels to Buddha's life in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's uncanny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The movie, of course, it's based on, the main story is on Ryo Okawa's life, but there's a lot of fascinating episodes in the movie. One of my favorite times was, he was kind of mocked by his friends and peers in university because he was writing love letters as poems to his girlfriend, right, at the time, or not, maybe not girlfriend, but the woman of his ideals. And they were just thinking like, oh, he's so old-fashioned, or he's not part of like the modern society in that way, but he was really idealistic his whole life. He didn't go the way as everyone else went. As Buddha says, he was like the sole rhinoceros horn that is by itself, carving its own path. That was one of my favorite, parts of that movie. Was there anything that was really fascinating or favorite parts of the movie that stood out to you?
Oh yeah, I mean, what you just mentioned, I think was a really great point. And I would say that sense of idealism in young people, to really go forth with a sense of individuation in the world, is becoming increasingly rare. I feel like we're seeing more and more groupthink and, collectivism and a loss of individuality in many young people today. And, I think to return to a point you made earlier, I think this is another reason that this, Twiceborn would be a great movie for younger people to see. One part that stuck out to me, though, was towards the end of the movie, and Ryo Okawa is meditating in his room. Mm-hmm. And he is hearing a voice speaking to him, and it's telling him that if he leaves work, his company now to become a spiritual, religious leader, that he's going to disappoint everybody, and that he should wait until he's 45 to do it, and he's going to hurt all these people. And then he realizes that the voice speaking to him is not something pure; it's something, demonic, or a devil itself, communicating to him. And I liked the scene where he realizes that and is able to identify the voice that's communicating these thoughts to him and overcomes it, which again has a parallel to Shakyamuni Buddha.
Right, I was just going to make that point. It's totally, parallel. It's, Mara of India, the devil, came to Buddha, said it was Brahma, right? And then said, don't leave your wife, don't leave your family behind. You're going to disappoint them. You're going to make people unhappy. So it was discouraging him to become a religious leader. And the same thing happened to Ryo Okawa, almost in a very similar way. He took the courage and he had the wisdom to distinguish good from evil and to distinguish the flaws in the devil's way of thinking and expose it And then he kind of illuminated the devil with his inner light and blasted the devil away from him. That is the true meaning of great enlightenment. That's the true meaning of, the spiritual power of a religious leader, is that they can even cause the devils to reflect upon their lack of wisdom and their lack of understanding in this world and in the spiritual world as well. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And it really, I think it speaks to the point that Twiceborn is a contemporary rendering of what it's like to experience enlightenment in the manner of like how Shakyamuni did. It really is parallel to that happening in the present age, which is so great to see because so many people think of Shakyamuni and it's it was 2,500 years ago, more or less. To think of what he taught, some of it might have been culturally bound to that time. Ryokawa's teachings are essentially the same teachings made for this time and also broader though, considering the whole earth. And I just think it's great the way it's presented.
I don't want to give any spoilers to our audience here, but the movie ends in a really fascinating and powerful way, like an empowering and powerful way. That takes us to the content of actually the Twiceborn book, which we discussed. In the latter part of that book, we see the Victory of Faith lecture. We weren't able to see that in the movie, but could you talk about that scene, that ending clip, and what really happened in real life?
Sure. The clip, if I'm not mistaken, takes place at the Tokyo Dome, and it was a packed Tokyo Dome. And for those listening from the United States who aren't familiar with that venue, it's enormous. I think it seats about 50,000. Yeah, so so it shows Ryokawa rising up from the floor into a staircase that he then descended and gave his lecture called The Victory of Faith, which appears at the end of the Twiceborn book. And it's such a powerful moment and a powerful ending. Even sharing it right now isn't doing it justice. So when you see it as the culmination of everything that Ryokawa experienced throughout the movie. The Victory of Faith lecture, as we mentioned last time, was so important because it was the moment when Ryokawa first spoke to the world and said, the man you see before you is not the entirety of what I am. Told them that he was El Cantare, and that was speaking through this body. And, guided people to turn inwards to the faith and to God existing within each of us. And it's such a powerful and pivotal moment in Ryokawa's career as a religious leader.
Yeah, definitely. I think that future generations will be talking about that lecture as a kind of turning point of human history. To be able to witness it in that form and through the book and through how the movie portrays it is really a miracle and such mercy for us human beings living today to know that we were alive, or we were in the same era at least, as the Savior who gave the teachings before the world in that manner. So it's kind of like a earth-shaking event.
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And you can also learn more on okawabooks.com. It was great talking to you again, John.
Likewise, Dylan.
In these trying times, stay happy, healthy, and positive.